Good morning, Australia. This is Chris Smith. It is Fabulous Friday at last. Some shocking news to start. This is coming out of Brisbane. A man has been charged with several counts of rape after an alleged random attack on a woman who was out on a morning walk. In light of some of the news that has dominated headlines this week, it is as gross as it gets. The woman, aged in her 20s, was walking in the leafy, semi-rural Brisbane suburb of Brookfield around 6:30 yesterday morning when she was stopped by an unknown man near the Brookfield Road Bridge, according to what police are saying. The man allegedly sexually assaulted the victim multiple times before he fled the scene on foot. Police have arrested a 32-year-old man a short distance from the scene. That happened yesterday afternoon, and then he was charged following that. He's been charged with 6 counts of rape, stalking, assault with intent to commit rape, assault occasioning bodily harm and deprivation of liberty. He is from Raceview in Ipswich, about 35 kilometres away from where the attack allegedly occurred. Just incredible. And we had that gang rape occurring in Macarthur, and other sexual assaults reported through the week as well. Just appalling. Now, from Indonesia, a Perth father has died after allegedly being brutally attacked while on a holiday in Bali. Paul Dugan had spent 10 days in intensive care, underwent 3 surgeries after being assaulted by a group of men at a bar in Kuta. The 50-year-old suffered 10 broken ribs, severe internal bleeding, had his spleen removed, and his family rushed to be by his bedside. His son Liam says the attack was not an accident, alleging his father was kicked and beaten by a group believed to be Australian. Indonesian police are investigating. So that father has now died as a result of that brawl. And, of course, we know what happened yesterday late in the program. We had news from police about young Lily Hooper being found alive, and then they had to go back to the family and tell them that she's not alive. Like, it's just bizarre. After 8 agonising days searching for Lily Hooper, just came to this terrible point where her parents were told that she'd been found alive deep inside the Natai National Park. Her father, Jim, punched the air in celebration, telling reporters, "Lily is alive, my girl is alive, she's coming home." The family even cracked beers and brought out Lily's favourite chocolate and her electric guitar. The same incorrect information was passed on to New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, who was in a budget estimates hearing. He was handed a note and then asked the note taker, "Is this accurate?" And then announced this to the room.
Goodness for Kate. Thank you, Kate.
I've got some terrible news, and I apologise to the committee, but it seems as if the early advice was wrong.
Can you stop the clock,
and
please?
Lily's body's been found, and she's been found deceased.
Oh. Her father later said, "There's nothing more we can do. She's gone. It's all over." Family and friends at the command post were left in shock and heartbreak as the reality sank in. New South Wales Police Commissioner Mal Lanyon has since apologised.
Sadly, this morning there was a miscommunication when Lily's body was recovered. That miscommunication, I unashamedly apologise for any additional trauma that may have caused Lily's family, but certainly for the embarrassment and confusion that caused. The miscommunication obviously was born out of elation that Lily had been found, and her condition at that time was such that searches were relieved, and certainly those at the command post related. Tragically, that miscommunication then led to a deflation, and obviously we know now, an impact on her family. Once again, I unreservedly apologise for that miscommunication.
Oh, how could you go ahead and announce that as fact without getting it confirmed? Like, seriously. And at the end of the program yesterday, on this program, I had 2 conflicting pieces of information. One, that she was found alive, which is what I saw Sky reporting at the time, and then one suggesting that she was dead. So I simply said that Sky is reporting that she has been found alive, which is factual, but the media was just sent down the wrong path as well. Now, the woman at the centre of the Sydney Swans sexual assault investigation has stepped forward saying she doesn't want money, she wants justice. The exotic dancer alleges she was sexually assaulted at the Pullman Hotel in Melbourne after being hired by Swans players for a late-night booking. She says there were 9 men in the room and that she and another dancer agreed to a discounted rate after being told by the men that they were tradies. Her father has also spoken out, saying her daughter was pretty distressed and told him she felt pressure from the men for sexual favours. Sources close to the incident say police determined the players were unfit to be interviewed on Monday morning after officers were called to the hotel and evidence was collected. Maybe they were just still intoxicated, I guess. There are also claims cocaine and ketamine were used in the room, allegations the 5 players have denied. And no surprise, the fallout is now hitting the players' families. Isaac Heaney is reportedly in a real bad headspace, and his distraught fiancée, Stephanie Waters, has left their Sydney home for Queensland. The other partners have largely stayed out of the public spotlight, and we're hearing some news just through now that the Swans are losing further sponsors. This time, the Transport for New South Wales has put its decade-long road safety partnership on ice with the club. The agency says all sponsorship partners are expected to uphold the highest standards of culture and behaviour, particularly when taxpayers' money is involved. So all of that Swans-branded Transport for New South Wales road safety messaging has to be pulled for Sunday's doubleheader. The agency says it will attend a sponsors briefing with the club on Monday, and others have pulled out as well. Now, in sport, the Panthers are back in the winner's circle after beating the Storm 22-14 at Amy Park in Melbourne. They led 22-blot at half-time. It could have been anything. And it was one of those Nathan Cleary masterclasses again, with Ben To'o scoring a hat-trick. In the NRL tonight, it'll be an emotional farewell for Josh Papali'i as Canberra take on the Raiders. Canberra is chasing back-to-back wins. Papali'i, that is his last home game in front of his fans. Dolphins then take on the Eels at Suncorp Stadium. And last night in the AFL, the Gold Coast finished its season with a 23-point win over St Kilda at Docklands, 103-80. That is the state of play. In the Castle of Common Sense, all wisdom is not confined to yours truly. You and your opinions matter and add so much colour to a program such as this. So come one, come all, 13 12 69. On the guest list this morning, by popular demand, and this is true, I get so many emails about this fellow coming onto the program, former Senator Gerard Rennick is joining us to talk superannuation. He's a great thinker, Gerard, and will no doubt have something to say too on yesterday's historic $1 trillion debt level. Former Liberal candidate and lawyer Catherine Deeves is on deck for us today. We'll talk about Albo's confession last night on the 7:30 program. You may want to comment on what he said there as well. I'll play for you what he said just in case you missed it. And she'll also talk about the death threats that have been sent to women's rights campaigner Sally Grover, which have obviously come from some rabid trans activist. And when the captain coach joins us a little bit later, we'll also be joined by St George great Craig Young, who will help us recall the life, the skill, the fun in the life of the late Billy Smith, a Dragons legend. Plenty on the program today, 13 12 69. This is Chris Smith on 2SM and the Super Radio Network. You know, the most common question I get asked by listeners away from the open line is whether one nation can win the next federal election. It was what listeners on that European trip we went on wanted to know too, and it comes up in emails almost daily. And the reality is, despite the wretched performance and poor polling from the Labor government at the moment, they still look highly likely to secure a third term. Their path to victory is being paved by a deeply fractured Conservative movement. Now, the latest Resolve strategic poll puts the coalition at an historic low of just 23% primary support, while Pauline Hanson's One Nation has surged to an extraordinary 26%. And I see today that prominent economist and columnist Henry Ergas is saying the same thing in The Australian. Ergas notes that while Hanson has achieved a permanent sense of authenticity in the eyes of her supporters, One Nation remains fundamentally a mere disruptor rather than a disciplined government in waiting. 30 years since its inception, the party still lacks a deep network of leadership talent or the institutional machinery required to build a genuine national force. And more significantly, One Nation will still receive a very large percentage of last-placed preferences. That's just the reality. Consequently, One Nation cannot mount a cohesive nationwide threat to Labor's Treasury benches on its own. However, what Hanson Surge can do, and is currently doing, is systematically hollow out the uninspired coalition seat by seat. So they eat their own. As Ergas points out, the real danger in this polling trend is not that Pauline Hanson will take the Prime Minister's suite. The danger is that by fracturing the right-wing vote and bleeding the coalition of political oxygen, One Nation essentially acts as a shield for Labor. It all but guarantees Anthony Albanese another 3 years in power, if he isn't toppled from within, but that's a different paradigm. For everyday Australians, this political deadlock offers very little comfort. Voters are currently enduring immense economic pain, with skyrocketing national debt passing a staggering $1 trillion yesterday, persistent inflation against international trends, and punishing cost of living pressures. Yet because the alternative government is structurally incapacitated by its own flanks, Labor is set to cruise across the finishing line almost by default. It's an electoral mathematics anomaly where a collapsing opposition secures a government survival, leaving the country facing 3 more years of the very economic misery we've come to know as well. Unless somehow the coalition can find traction, and plenty of it, it will be 9 years of hard labour. OK, I've got callers who want to comment on what the Prime Minister had to say on the ABC last night. So the best way, before I take those calls, is to play what he said, for those who missed it. He's actually conceded, and he doesn't concede much, appearing on that controversial Bush Deep podcast was an error. Yeah, he's actually said he's made an error. Amazing. The PM was pressed on the appearance during that interview last night and admitted that if he had his time again, he wouldn't have done it.
You've got to learn something new every day, but also you've got to grow as a person every day. I continue to do that, and I continue to learn new things every day and to do better each and every day.
And specifically in relation to that, what did you learn?
Well, I learned that I need to do better every day. And, of course, if I had my time again, which you don't, then I wouldn't have done that podcast. You know, we have a View which is trying to talk to as many people as possible, but clearly that was an error.
So it was an error to go on, but he still stopped short of apologising for his remarks about melons in reference to the Japanese Prime Minister. He says he has apologised for other elements of the podcast. Well, that's the reference to Kylie Minogue only. Wayne in Lismore, go ahead.
I couldn't believe it. He's insulted her again, the Prime Minister of Japan, hasn't he, by leaving her off the, out of the what he said.
Indirectly, maybe, yeah.
Well, he has. That's my first impression. My first impression when I seen the whole lot was that the comments about the Japanese prime ministers and the melons and stuff was, in my opinion, was far worse than what he said about Kylie Minogue, because this is a leader and a respectable leader of another country. Sure, when you get gifts or when you give gifts, sometimes they might not be appreciated, especially internationally, where people from other cultures and stuff. You just got to keep in the back of your mind that what's precious and important from one culture may not be the same in another culture.
Yeah.
You do the right thing. You don't. You treat it all with dignity, and vice versa. When you're giving a gift, you might think it's precious, and the other people might think it's strange. He shouldn't have even went there. shouldn't have even went there in the first place. But yeah, he's insulted. Well, he's refused to apologise when he had the chance, which is basically thumbing his nose at her again. And the only explanation I've ever heard is that recently there was a commentator suggested that perhaps he's sucking up to Beijing. He wants to show Beijing that he's not kowtowing to Japan very much. And
well, the Chinese would actually appreciate that. You're right.
With a Prime Minister with that sort of an attitude and the sort of attitude we've seen from the ABC over Gina Righter, is it any wonder, and I'm not defending them, is it any wonder that we have a bunch of knucklehead footballers carrying on like they did on the weekend in Melbourne?
Wayne, good to get your comments. Pretty straightforward. And maybe it is another indirect slight against the Japanese Prime Minister because he just refuses to apologise. Was that an apology last night? No, I shouldn't have done the podcast. That's nowhere near an apology for saying what he did. Farmer Jim, come in.
Yeah, Chris, how are you?
Very well.
Mate, what an absolute imbecile our Prime Minister is, eh? Mate, I've never seen a bloke so out of his depth and so, I don't know what else I can say, or I can say plenty, but not on your program, mate. But ever since he started this podcast business and trying to prove to the younger generation that all the socialists who want to live off the government, well, the government got no money, only what me and you give them from working our arse off. But what they're coming after us like no tomorrow, well, there ain't going to be too many of us left because once you got work, you got rewarded for working hard and contributing to the country. But today, these old socialists, mate, they're coming for you. And that Prime Minister, when he first mentioned about screwing Kylie Minogue, don't worry about screwing Kylie Minogue, Albo. You're screwing the whole lot of you. You're screwing the whole of the country until someone wakes up enough to work out that you're absolutely hopeless, then we are stuck in a rut. And like you just said before, we probably have another 3 years of Albo because, like you say, the coalition and Pauline Hanson are fractioning the old Conservative vote. So what Angus Taylor and all them should do is sort of get a bit of a conglomerate together to form something with Pauline because Albo's got the Greens, he's got the Teals, he's got the Union Movement, he's got all these fellas backing him, and they're out on their own. They're out on their own, every single one of them, bashing Pauline Hanson. When Pauline Hanson's out there trying to do her best, they should be getting some sort of a coalition together because, mate, I can tell you now, like I said, Albo's not only screwing Kylie Minogue, he's screwing the whole of a lot of us. And that melon bullshit that he come on with there last night, that was no apology. What an absolute joke that bloke is. Anyway, mate, my old mate used to say, keep the dream alive. Well, I can tell you what, Chris, that dream is fast evaporating under this Labor government. And them women in his government come out there supporting Albo. If that had been a coalition, Prime Minister out there, the sky would have fallen, mate.
You better believe it, Jim. In so many ways, you were spot on. I said this earlier in the week about this country is no longer the country where you work your backside off and you gather and accumulate wealth and you therefore have a terrific retirement. All of that has gone out the window. You've got to put your hand out now, Jim.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. We are 5 generations of farmers. The old man worked, his grandfather worked. Everyone here worked hard, contributed to the country, built the country to where it is today. But you got students in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane all protesting about Pauline Hanson wanting to make the country great. I can tell you what, those kids going to school, I'll tell you what they should do, Chris. Go to the school of hard knocks, mate. Anyway, keep the dream alive, mate.
Great to get your call, Jim. Thank you very much from Dalby, Farmer Jim. Greg, good morning.
Different subject, and yes, I do believe Albo is a complete dropkick. But I was going to talk about an Australian company called GME. They're based in Sydney, and they make a thing called a personal location beacon. Now, I'm on my way right now to Cape York, and I wouldn't dare go remote without a personal location beacon because a snake bite, a broken leg, something that goes wrong out of your scope of being able to rescue yourself. You've got this personal location beacon, which once you trigger it, it will bring emergency services to within a metre of you.
Yeah.
And it's a great Australian company, the great Australian product. And I think that the word needs to get out that more of these bushwalkers and young people who go remote and do these things, they take these things with them and they will save their own lives. They're not cheap, but they're definitely a lot cheaper than the outcome.
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't know whether Lily's dad listens. I know he listens to the Super Radio Network. I don't want to go down that track about her inability to be prepared or not, but you're right. If she'd have had that beacon, she probably would be alive today.
This is not just Lily, mate. This is everybody. I know young blokes that go motorbike riding out remote, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, my son goes motorbike riding remote, and I make him take a PLB because it comes off, you know, breaks a wrist or an ankle or a knee or whatever. Yeah. You know, at least that'll go off, and, you know, the emergency services are coming. That's it. They will not, once it's triggered, they are coming.
Yep, it's all terribly sad, and not only that, it's been saddened even more by the way in which it was handled by New South Wales Police. Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much for that. Shirley in Bathurst wants to talk about the Swans scandal. Go ahead, Shirley.
Oh, good morning there, Chris. Now, these stupid women that do nude dances, they light the fire and then they call the fire brigade. They're to blame. If I was a judge, I would fine the woman for what she did.
Yeah. Having said that, there were clear rules applied in that meeting at 4 a.m. And they weren't followed by the players. Having said that, she is a victim of sexual assault.
Oh, she asked for it. Come on. These women are damn stupid. Dancing nude in front of men at 4 a.m. She should have been in bed asleep.
All right, Shirley. Thank you very much for the commentary. Shirley's not alone here. I've been smashed with emails saying the same thing. Shirley is the third female listener saying the same thing, that responsibility has to be on the shoulders of the women who turn up at 4 a.m. as well. I won't comment except to say that the line was crossed, and that was not what was agreed to between that group from the Swans and the women who turned up at 4 a.m. So I do want to go to John's call, he's rung from the Gold Coast straight after we heard from Shirley on the Swans scandal. Go ahead, John.
Good morning, Chris. Good show. I always listen to you, a first-time caller. But with those girls that were involved, it's a dangerous situation. Going to a hotel room at 4 o'clock in the morning, they must know the guys that have been drinking or on drugs. Why don't they a security officer to be with them, have security with them, so that the security guy could be standing outside the room if there's any trouble?
Well, some of these girls do. I've been to bucks parties in the past, like decades ago, where security turns up with a woman who might be performing at a bucks party. And so they didn't have anyone like that with them, and so therefore you're putting yourself in a terribly dangerous situation, as you rightly say, John.
That's right. And, you know, guys can be guys, doesn't matter who they are, footballers or not. They're celebrating, having a few drinks so that their hair down, but they don't know how intoxicated they are. They don't know what would happen if a couple of topless girls walk in. Naturally, they go berserk and do stupid things, and it ruins the whole club. I don't follow Sydney, but I like the club, and I stand up for what they do and on the roads, and it's just a shame. It just puts the game in turmoil, in my opinion. Anyway, as their manager said, they've torpedoed the season, and that's what they've actually done. So I just feel sorry, and I just hope they can win their final now, despite of what's happened.
Thank you for your commentary, John. I do appreciate it. Plenty want to comment on many of those issues, including what's happening with the Swans. I'll get to you very shortly. But the debate around women's rights, gender ideology and single-sex spaces is heating up again, with women's rights campaigners facing alleged death threats, you heard right, doctors facing complaints because they are negatively talking about gender reconstruction and drugs for teenagers, and a legal battle is now brewing in WA over transgender prisoners, that is, biological men, demanding to go to women's prisons. It is crazy stuff. And it's not isolated anymore. It's crazy stuff. Joining us this morning is women's rights advocate, lawyer and former political candidate Catherine Deves, who's been closely involved in the fight over women's rights and single-sex bases. She joins us now. Catherine, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Chris. Great to join you as always.
Now, I heard you had a dinner with Sally Grover last night. Is it true that she has received death threats and has pulled out of speaking at the women's rights rally in Sydney on Sunday?
That is correct, Chris.
Tell me about the nature of the threats.
Oh, look, they've said one bullet, one turf, and that's being shared around. Also, Kira Lee Smith, who we know has been fighting for women's rights in sport, also received death threats. My understanding is that the police said there was nothing they could do. And I just look at this and I think this monstering and demonising of people for their political views, threatening them, absolutely, it has to stop, because we are woefully naive, Chris, if we don't think that we can't have a Charlie Kirk situation here in Australia, because these trans activists, these extreme left progressives, they are just allowed time and time again to get away with this. They act with impunity, they're emboldened, they're making these threats all over social media, and we're now at the point where people can't even get up. Where's our of belief? And these people are allowed to get away with sitting there and threatening death upon women who are just saying, we really don't want blokes in our spaces and sports. I mean, this has really gone far enough, Chris. But as we know with trans activism, and I've been talking about this for so many years, I'll be so grateful for the day I never have to say the T word again. But they've infiltrated, they've got favourable court decisions. Yep. They've got the police on their side. Yep. I mean, indeed, Kira Lee, she's in court because she's got AVOs against her, vilification complaints.
And the medical fraternity too, Catherine.
That's exactly right. They're weaponising AHPRA against very eminent paediatricians with decades, and psychologists and psychiatrists with decades of experience, who say there is a problem here with medicalising children. It is surgical mutilation when you remove the breasts of a mentally distressed teenage girl. There is no evidence of efficacy. There is no evidence base for any of that, and that came out in a Texas court by the World Professional Association for Transgender Health just a couple of weeks ago. They admitted their standards of care are not standards of care. It was just a nice idea at the time. And the people who are blowing the whistle on this are facing death threats. They're facing court action. Their reputation's ruined. They go after their livelihoods. Like Sal's obviously can't run her business while all of this is going on. Yeah. They went after my political campaign. It is completely out of control, Chris, and I do not want to see somebody dead on an Australian street or an Australian campus killed by trans activists as Charlie was, because the government just continues to go along with this insane ideology.
Okay, which brings me to the WA professor, Gary Gilhood. He is facing an official complaint because he dared to publicly speak out about how gender-related medical treatment for children was wrong and that children shouldn't have a say in that area. It's just an obvious thing to say. If they can't vote until they're 18, if they can't go to a bar until they're 18, but they can change their body forever when they're 14, he makes a very good point. But now he's the subject of an official complaint.
Well, children cannot consent. They cannot consent to being lifelong patients, because they have these surgeries or these puberty blockers that cause just these dreadful side effects: osteoporosis, cancers, sexual dysfunction. We don't even know what it does to their cognitive and executive functioning. Their little bodies haven't finished growing. They haven't finished developing. Their brains haven't finished developing. They haven't even gone through puberty. Yeah. But we have these activists in general and activist medicos who are saying your child is going to kill themselves if we don't do this. Or you indeed have the parents who actually are they enjoy being the parent of a trans child and all the sort of credibility and kudos that brings. But we should be leaving these children alone. If they're at the age of 25, when their brains and bodies have finished developing and, that's what they choose to do, that's elective surgery, fine. But these are paediatricians raising the alarm. And in other countries, they've stepped away from it. As we know, the UK CAS report, what's happening in America. But here in Australia, we're doubling down and we're actually giving more money to the gender activists and indeed to the gender medical services, even though I wouldn't even term it that. I think it's a grotesque experiment on children because, as we keep saying, there's no evidence.
It's child abuse.
This actually improves outcomes for those children.
Yeah, it's child abuse, which brings me to WA again and this court decision that will allow a transgender prisoner, so a biological male who says that they consider themselves a woman, to go to a women's prison. We're nuts.
They've been warned. I cannot tell you how many times they've been written to, parliamentary submissions, parliamentary inquiries, people giving evidence, people talking in the media, and the governments of the day are like, no, nothing to see here. That's not going to happen. But we now have examples where violent men are getting into women's prisons. I mean, talk about cruel and unusual punishment.
Yes.
But WA, I mean, they changed their equality bill a year or so ago. This is the end result. We are now locking women in with these men who are now raping them and attacking them. And then these men, when they're put in isolation, as happened in Victoria and in WA with this individual that you're talking about, they're now bringing sex discrimination complaints and human rights complaints because they want to be locked in with the women so they can have their fun and games and their identities affirmed. It's insane.
It's insane. Good description. It is totally and utterly insane, and it's getting worse. Now, to a political level, I've had some feedback today from listeners about what Albo had to say on 7:30 last night. No apology again to the Japanese Prime Minister. That obviously didn't happen. We were only imagining it. But he said that if he had his choice again, he wouldn't be appearing on the podcast. What is wrong with him?
Yeah, I think he's desperate to be liked. I think he had sand kicked in his face at primary school. I think maybe he wasn't lucky with the ladies when he was learning to be a Marxist at Sydney Uni. And here he is on this podcast with a very beautiful, smart, funny comedian. And he's happy to be crass and crude and talk about the body parts of a serious leader of a serious G8 country. And indeed, talking about his fantasies about, Australia's sweetheart who's a breast cancer survivor. I don't think he's fit for office. Where is the dignity, decorum and gravitas the office of the Prime Minister deserves? Well, Australians deserve a serious leader, and here he is acting like an idiot because he's trying to make this woman giggle. I mean, the man, it just really shouldn't be where he is. So disappointing and embarrassing for everyone. We deserve. If he was a CEO of a publicly listed company, Chris, what do you think would have happened? Would have been fired,
turfed long ago.
Apologised, absolutely out the door. But here he is, making an apology way too late. The man doesn't know how to act like a Prime Minister.
Well, even on this Swan scandal, I want to play a grab because I know people who are listening want to comment on this as well. So I'll play the grab for those who haven't heard it. But this is, again, Albo trying to comment on something that he thinks or tries to pretend he knows what he's talking about, and he simply does not. He said this.
The idea that this is occurring is completely untenable, and the initial response as well was, I think, completely unacceptable. But the first thoughts should have been always about women and their safety, and I don't think that occurred at this time.
Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about because the AFL have been in constant contact with the Swans throughout this process. They've now banned and suspended all these players until next year. They're probably not going to play AFL again. What does he want? Does he want to, bash them up? Does he want the AFL to lock them all up overnight before they're allowed out? Like, seriously, it's just a dumb thing to say.
Look, I mean, he's talking about protecting women, but he's happy to have, violent pedophiles locked in prisons with women. Yep. So the man's a hypocrite. But in talking about the Swans, I thought, they can't just immediately come out the moment it breaks on socials swinging. They have to do their internal investigation. I thought they acted very promptly, very appropriately. Yep. We have to allow the police investigation to run its course. But yep. I think they've done the right thing.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, of course. There's no doubt about that. But he tries to find the headline where he can be seen to be supporting the women and then carries on about the AFL not doing their job. It's just ridiculous. Catherine Deves, fantastic to have you on the program. Thank you very much for your time.
Great to join you, Chris. Thanks so much.
Good on you. Catherine Deeves, lawyer, former political candidate and women's rights advocate. Look, you've had your say already this morning. There's nothing I'm going to say to add to what you've already said, but boy, oh boy, we've got some very, very thick leaders in this country, and you wonder why our economy is totally going to the dogs. Let's go to Melbourne. Jim wants to have his say. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, good day, Chris. It's Jimmy H. Look, I feel sorry for the well-mannered players that do the right thing.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to suffer with restrictions because of these, clowns that got involved.
Well, apparently, according to one website platform, that some of the other players who found out about it, once they were told by Dean Cox that morning, did their block and confronted some of the players involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have every right to, because they know that the club's now going to put restrictions on them that they don't reserve.
Yeah.
Right?
And they basically know in the back of their minds that without three of their top players amongst that group that have been suspended, they won't get into a grand final.
Well, you hope that the young blokes that this gives an opportunity to stand up and,
True.
That's possible.
Yeah. True. Do we make the 8?
Well,
Jimmy, do we make the 8, the Bunnies?
Oh, yes. Yes, I feel very confident. Hopefully, we can do well against the Wars, which will be a hard game tomorrow night. But, we just, as I often think I've said it to you, you don't start a fight with somebody unless you think you're going to win.
Yes, very true, Jimmy. Thank you so much, mate. You enjoy your day and your weekend. Jan in Coffs Harbour. Go ahead, Jan.
Oh, my God, Chris Smith.
What's that?
Australia.
My God. Why would you start the call with my God?
Chris Smith, not John Laws.
No.
Smith.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to talk about Coffs Harbour blackberry poisoning.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, my qualifications are very well. I'm watching drones, aerial spraying, all the Cassowary black cockatoos up from Coffs Harbour to Yamba. They're spraying it. They're spraying it for development. I even watched 2 big eucalyptus being poisoned about 2 months ago. And I went, wow, they want ocean views. I'm glad I live where I live in Coffs Harbour. Thank you. North.
Yeah.
Emerald.
Beautiful.
Woolgoolga.
Woolgoolga. That's it.
Woolgoolga. Don't you tell anyone. It's about you and me.
Okay, don't tell anyone it's heaven.
Black cockatoos. I'm an environmentalist, but they're cutting down all our big guns.
Well, have you done anything about it apart from ring me?
What?
Have you done anything about it apart from ring me?
No, I've rang Australia.
You've rung Australia. Well, you've rung part of Australia, yeah.
I phoned Australia, 2SM, and I love your show every day.
Oh, you're very kind.
Monday to Friday, thank you. And I'm glad you got back from the European cruise.
In one place? In one piece, you mean? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan. Thank you very much for what you've had to say. There you go. Now, I want to tell you about another incredible travel opportunity. We're back from Europe, but you know where we're going next year? Hopefully it includes you. You can join me in May, June of 2027 for a 16-day Africa and Victoria Falls tour with those tour masters at Cruise offers. Now, this is one of the bucket list items of your life. I'm telling you, we're going on an African adventure, a safari. We're going to Joburg and Soweto, which is incredible. The journey will go to Botswana as well, the Chobe National Park, and we'll look for the Big Five. And having done it before myself, I know what a bucket list item this trip will be. We're going to see some German colonial architecture as well. We're going to Cape Town, one of the great cities of the world. We'll visit Table Mountain and then the Cape of Good Hope. Can I just tell you, go to this website, chrissmithcruise.com.au. It's not a cruise, but it's an incredible, incredible opportunity. chrissmithcruise.com.au. I started the program talking to you about this incredible, terrible attack in Brisbane, where a woman yesterday was simply going for her morning walk at 6:30 and she was allegedly raped. And it apparently was not a singular rape because the man involved from Ipswich has been charged with multiple cases. But here is a pointer to what women may have to do, which doesn't make sense at all. But it's what's happened in Melbourne. A 13-year-old boy has been arrested over an alleged attempted sexual assault against two women who were walking their dogs near Gardeners Creek in Melbourne. 13. Police allege the boy approached the women and attempted to sexually assault them, but the women were a little bit smarter. They got their dogs onto the 13-year-old, and the dogs chased him away, which allowed the women to escape. And thankfully the boy, 13, I just don't get that, has since been taken to a police station, interviewed before being released pending further inquiries. Just appalling that women would have to take dogs with them on walks for fear of being raped. Like, what kind of world are we living in? Well, here is the energy story of the day. Another tax grab by the government on renewables. Listen to this. Foreign investors are going to keep a major tax break on renewable energy projects, while Australian mum and dad investors, as you know, face higher taxes on their investments. A deal between Labor, the Greens and the Crossbench will extend the 50% capital gains tax discount, but only for eligible foreign-owned renewable energy projects from 2030 to 2040. So the rest of the nation on any investment will not get that kind of discount. But if you're a foreigner and if you've got green subsidies in your eyes and you love renewables and you think this is the way forward to save the planet, you're going to get the full 50% capital gains discount. They must be kidding. The government says the move is needed to keep overseas investment flowing into Australia's renewable energy sector because, as you know, the renewable energy sector is on its knees because they can't get investors. So the only way to get investors and to keep their net zero dreams alive is to retain the full discount on the capital gains tax, but not for you. No, you're Australian. No. So from July next year, Australian investors will lose access to the same investment benefits, but not if you're a foreigner trying to build a renewable farm. Nationals leader Matt Canavan has accused Labor of giving a tax cut to foreigners while increasing taxes on Australians. The government says the renewable concession is targeted and time-limited, 10 years, and will support investment in Australia's energy transition. The deal is expected to pass the Senate when Parliament returns in September. Can you believe this stuff? They are obsessed with this evangelism. They won't make any difference to the temperature of the planet. But no, we've got to spend trillions heading down that virtue signalling path. Now, power at 7:15 this morning, smack bang in the middle of breakfast time, and power demand is very high at 7:15. Batteries were supplying us with 5% of power. Gas was giving us 4%. Hydro giving us 9%, all piddling single figures, including solar, 5%. Wind crept up to 17%, but we were getting 60% of our power from our coal-fired power stations. Back to the government, and you know what all the talk about superannuation is at the moment. They are considering meddling with your super, looking at new rules governing how our retirement savings are managed, while millions of workers have little say over what happens to their own money. The fact that you change the goalpost on people with superannuation accounts is the worst, because you get into an investment or a commitment with super, not expecting the goalpost to change, so you make decisions based on the current system. Whenever they change the goalpost, people have every reason to be angry. Compulsory super was introduced to help Australians build wealth for retirement, but workers are now required to put 12% of their wages into super, where that money is largely locked away until retirement. But when they change the goalposts, you're right behind the eight ball. You should be able to make decisions progressively based on changes in rules. But anyway, former Senator of Queensland and the founder and leader of the People's First Party, Gerard Rennick, wants to scrap compulsory super altogether, arguing that Australians should have the freedom to decide how best to use and invest their own money. This is a great discussion to have, especially in this week when we've hit the $1 trillion mark in terms of our debt. Gerard Rennick, a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me on today, Chris.
No problem. I can't tell you how many people send me emails saying, get Gerard Rennick on again, get Gerard Rennick on again. So you may not be at the front line of politics at the moment, but they don't forget you, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So,
well, we're still fighting the fight and calling out the Labor government and all their poor policy decisions every day.
Well, can I just raise one issue, which is the $1 trillion debt level we reached at 10:30 yesterday morning. It's just hideous. It's historic. And it puts the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that so far behind the eight ball, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's a result of the decisions made in the 1980s when Paul Keating lifted capital control and allowed foreign banks to start lending money to Australians. And what we saw is the total amount of foreign debt in 1985 was around $8 billion. By 2008, it was almost $800 billion. And that money was lent against housing. And what that did was tie up to future generations in so much debt that they can't get ahead. Now, add to that the fact that superannuation takes away 12% of people's wages. But more importantly, for low to medium income earners, it takes away most of their disposable income. So if you're on $80,000, you'll pay about $16,000 tax, but you'll leave you $64,000 net. You'll need about $50,000 to live on. So you're left with $14,000 to save. Now, 12% of $80,000 is $9,600. That's how much money is put into superannuation. So as a result of that, you're actually your disposable income after your compulsory superannuation contribution drops to about $4,000.
$4,000.
So that's going to slow down the time or increase the time it takes to save for a house by a factor of 3. Now, when the median house price in this country is close to $1 million and they're rising by 5% a year, your opportunity cost of not getting into the housing market every year is on average around $50,000. And this is what's happened over the last few decades, is that younger people especially, have been locked out of the housing market through poor policy decisions by prior, in particular Labor governments.
So you think that if we had a choice, we could do more with the money we were being paid for work?
Yeah, absolutely. And our policy is to still allow superannuation. Like, you can still have voluntary superannuation, and we will allow the first $25,000 you earn in superannuation to be tax-free. You can put in as much money as you like into superannuation and take out as much as you like. There's none of this concessional, non-concessional stuff. Yeah. But the reason why that matters is if you're young and you're earning $80,000, but you might save, make $10,000 in capital gains or an interest on a term deposit, if you do that through your superannuation account, all of that is tax-free rather than being taxed at 30 cents in the dollar. Now, you might be able to save up, over the first 5 to 10 years of your life, $100,000, $150,000. You can park all that in your superannuation account, get it all tax-free, and up to $25,000, and then you can pull that out and use that to buy a house with that, so that we're not restricting people from accessing their super to buy a house as well. And that's really important. And the other thing we have to touch on is there's this myth going around that if people can access their super, will drive up house prices. That's a fair argument, but the easiest way to offset that is to increase the minimum deposit required for a house. Now, as you know, Albanese has recklessly backed 5% deposits. Yeah. That's too low.
Yeah. So what we will 5 minutes before then reducing the advantage of capital gains tax and the discount and also negative gearing. Like, how dare he lure these people into the trap?
Exactly. And the 5%, regardless of any tax changes, was always too low because a $50,000 deposit can allow you to buy a house up to $1 million.
Yeah.
And this was another thing that Keating got rid of in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Was they relaxed capital lending standards so that minimum deposits were dropped. And that, of course, created the false economy of allowing people to borrow more than they could afford. And so they got sucked into it that way. And, of course, the money they accessed was foreign debt to make it worse. So what we want to do, 5% deposit with $50,000 will, allow you to buy a house for $1 million. What we will gradually increase it to 10%. So the most you could buy is a house for $500,000. So what we'll do is, and we don't make any apologies for this, we do want to level out house prices, but what we don't want to do is see them fall. But the way we will fix this is by increasing real disposable income by allowing people to access their superannuation for a house, and secondly, cut income tax up to $45,000. So you'll actually pay $4,000 less in income tax, so that your real wage will increase. And that's what we want to do, is increase real wages relative to house prices rather than bring house prices down.
Yeah. In many ways, the way super works now, we're actually being double taxed on the money we earn, aren't we?
Well, you're being double taxed, but not only that, this money is being used against us. I mean, what people may not realise is that if you've got an industry or retail fund, you don't actually get to elect the board of that fund. So these people have now got access, excluding self-managed super funds, to over $3 trillion in capital. And if you control $3 trillion in capital, you control basically the economy.
Yeah.
So when we see, Jim Chalmers is now talking about using superannuation to buy, invest in renewables. Australian Super just came out recently and said they were going to invest $500 million in India. 500 million, wasn't it? Yeah, $500 million in India. Overall, there's estimated to be about $1 trillion invested offshore. This money, when Bob Hawke set up superannuation, was supposed to be used for investing in infrastructure here in Australia. We are desperately crying out for more infrastructure here in Australia, and we should be able to actually, if that super was going to be invested in anything, it should be constructing new infrastructure, not buying the infrastructure that was privatised by state governments in the 1990s, which is just only yet again empowered, the industry funds and which is controlled by the unions to actually. I mean, I've always said superannuation's communism because it's effectively now allowed, these unelected board members who are often appointed by, they're often ex-Labor politicians like Wayne Swan, Greg Combay, et cetera. They now control our infrastructure as well. They're literally controlling the means of production, and you don't even get to vote for these board members as a member of your super fund.
Yeah, very true. When you consider that we've had compulsory super in for about 30 years, but we still have millions of Australians relying on the age pension, that tells me the system simply has not achieved what it was designed to achieve.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. If your listeners Google ASFA superannuation statistics, ASFA stands for Australian Superannuation Financial Association, you will see the median balance for women aged 60 to 64 is $163,000. Now, to get off a full pension, even onto a part pension, you need $320,000 in assets. And to get off the full pension, you need about $800,000 in assets. So half the women who are about to retire in the next 5 years are only halfway to getting off a full pension onto a part pension, and about a fifth of the way of getting off the full pension completely. Now, for men, it's slightly higher. It's $220,000, but they are still a long way short. So the median is basically the halfway mark. So of, say, for example, 14 million workers in Australia, it's the 7th millionth person. So that means half the people in that age group are nowhere near getting off the pension. And when we started superannuation in 1992, about 50% of retirees are on a full pension. So the dial has not shifted in 34 years. Super's not quite fully matured yet, but even after 34 years now, we've got a pretty good indication it's not going to shift the dial much at all. It might shift it by 1 or 2%, but you've got to weigh that up against $40 billion in fees, management fees, just to do all this paper shuffling. And as I say to people, we do not need any more financial engineers in this country pushing pens and shuffling papers. We need real engineers getting out there, building real infrastructure that's going to increase the supply of baseload energy, increase the supply of dams and water, build better roads, faster roads, so we can lower the cost of doing business. And these essential services will then again provide recurring income for state governments to pay for the recurring costs of schools and hospitals. Because when we privatised this infrastructure, especially state governments in the 1990s, they lost this recurring income that funded these essential services.
Yeah, they did. It's always good to get your analysis. I'm so glad you're on today to talk about superannuation. Thank you so much for your time, Gerard.
Thanks very much, Chris, and good day to your listeners.
Good on you. Former Senator of Queensland, founder and leader of the People's First Party, Gerard Rennick. He's got a mind like a steel trap, hasn't he? Always good to get his feel on this sort of stuff. And he's right about having an option. It'd be great if we had a democratically run superannuation system where we had options. We could decide and have a choice. But no, this is the new Australia. I'll take some calls now, but in about 6 minutes' time, the Swans are holding a press conference. I'll stay with that press conference just for a few minutes to see what the theme of that conference is, or whether there's any particular announcement related to the scandal that the club faces, but we'll stick with it just a short time. So that's about 5.5 minutes from now. In the meantime, Peter in Tweed Heads wants to talk about small businesses. Go ahead, Pete.
Morning, Chris.
Good day.
Yes, I read a thing the other day, or just 2 days ago, data from the Credit Watch. A lot of people don't realise, but since July last year, there was 4,000 businesses, like restaurants, cafes, takeaway, whatever, small business, family business, have closed down. Before that, in 2025, there was 3,600.
Yeah.
So we got garbage mouth Chalmers, got the audacity to turn around and say, we only got $1 trillion compared to America and to Japan. Like, are you for real?
Yeah.
And they wonder why young families or young couples don't have children, because they can't buy a house, they can't build a business. And that's just the start of it. And this Credit Watch reckons there's worse to come. So we're not looking good, and that's just absolutely appalling that this guy, he couldn't run a brothel fistful of 20, excuse the French. Like, it's just, however he got a job as a treasurer is beyond belief.
Well, one, that is so true. And secondly, about small businesses, so many people would hesitate to establish a small business today because of the carnage we are witnessing in the last 5 years.
Well, that's correct. I've had a couple of friends that I've known that wanted to start a business, had to put a bit of money aside, and they just said, well, we don't think we'll go ahead. We just can't make this work. And all the red tape and all the government mishmash and everything like that, you've got to pay this, you've got to pay that, and stamp duty and all this sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, they should just get rid of stamp duty, I reckon.
Yeah, we don't even get a stamp, as I always say, Peter. Thank you very much for your call. Yeah, just on small businesses, the carnage has been astonishing. But what do we expect when your average politician nowadays has never done small business themselves? They don't know what it's like to have skin in the game and have their house on the line. They're paid by taxpayer dollars. They're public servants. They don't understand what it's like to run a small business. And so no wonder the vast majority of them make it so hard for small business to survive. Anthony's in Bathurst. G'day, Anthony.
Good morning, Chris. Great program, mate.
Thank you.
I want to talk about superannuation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm conservative at heart, but I don't agree with people being allowed to get out their super before retirement age. Because why I say that is because, well, I'm at the very tail end of the baby boomers. There's a lot of us, and a lot of them are going to be retiring over the next few years. So give it another 10 years, there's going to be a hell of a lot more people needing some sort of support in their later life, and the government's just not going to be able to afford bloody pay the pension.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, but they make it so hard to live comfortably, and they don't know how to control a runaway inflation ball. So we're all looking to try and find savings from somewhere to manage our lives.
Yeah, true, but if you allow people to access the super to, I don't know, do whatever, I don't know, but that'll flood the market even more, then that'll push inflation up, won't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You make a good point. I wonder, though, whether people, if they could get access to a small amount of their super, would actually start spending like nutcases, or would they just pay the bills that they can't pay?
Well, they did in COVID.
Yeah. Good on you, Anthony. Thank you very much for your contribution on superannuation. Back on the gender debate, Chris from Ryde has phoned through. Chris, good morning.
Oh, okay, Chris, how you going?
Good, thank you.
I know the people that go into this in gender identity and all this, but what really irritates me are these companies and government, of course, but mainly these companies that placate this.
Yeah.
That accept it and say, oh.
And they don't stand up against it.
They don't stand up against it. And they're the ones that really irritate me.
Yeah.
Because they're only doing it for their own gain, because, it's like follow the mob, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just
follow the virtue signalling mob.
The virtue signalling mob that, placate these things. And it's similar to, but to allow a government to allow in prisons a bloke to change his gender so he can get into a women's prison is obscene and absurd to allow that to happen.
Oh, well described. It is that and more, mate.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's all I've got. But it's not right.
No, it's not right. And you know what has to happen here? The government, with its majority, has to change the legislation on the Anti-Discrimination Act to allow judges to have common sense in this regard. Because the law, as instituted by Julia Gillard, was changed.
But doesn't know which road he's going down. He's either going down to accept all this, trans people in women's sports and bathrooms and change rooms and all that. Oh. Yet here he goes abusing a Prime Minister of Japan. And I tell you what, I think that what he said about Kylie Minogue was a little bit rough as well. That wasn't very...
Oh, she handled it well by not dignifying the comment at all with the comment.
Exactly. And that's the way she did that. That's only my take on it. Thanks, Chris.
Good on you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your commentary. Yeah, and it's getting more widespread and accepted, this business about teenagers making decisions about changing their body forever because they somehow think that they're another gender, like seriously. Okay, Dean Cox, the Sydney Swans coach, is being joined by Captain Callum Mills at a press conference in Moore Park. We will go to that press conference right now. We'll only stick with it for a short time, and then we'll come on and get you a news update. Here they are now.
Hand it over to Millsy, and then we'll open up for questions. Coxie, Mr.
All right, thank you for coming. We all have women in our lives we deeply love. I would like to express that the respect for women is of the highest priority for both myself personally and our football club. We have some fantastic women working in our football club, both in the AFLW program and on staff, and our thoughts are with them, and I apologise to them, along with the women in the community, for the actions of the players. We are extremely disappointed at the actions of the players, and the sanctions imposed by the board show that how serious we take these matters. To those women involved, I hope everyone is getting the support they need. A culture isn't perfect. One thing that we do know is our culture has taken a hit. The thing you need to understand about a culture is how you respond and the actions you take following being hit. We're going to work through, and as hard as we possibly can, to get the trust back from the community to get to the culture where we're desired to be, where we once have been. As you understand, this is a police matter, so there will be some questions that I can't answer, but I appreciate you the time, and thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Dean. I'm deeply shocked and disappointed to be here. And I firstly want to apologise to the AFLW players, our female staff and the women in our lives, our partners, mothers, sisters, and all women within the community. We take these allegations extremely seriously, and we hope the women involved are getting all the support they deserve. We're really disappointed at the actions of these 5 players, and as a playing group, we fully support the club's decision on the sanctions handed down. We take full responsibility and we are deeply sorry. This is a police investigation, and out of respect to all parties involved, there'll be questions I won't be able to answer to.
Dean, were there any other Swans staff members in the room apart from the 5 players?
That's a police investigation.
But isn't it something that the Swans would know? You could answer that.
That's a police investigation, so all that will be brought out in due course.
Dean, was it a mistake to give them a free pass to go and without a curfew?
We spoke about post-game, about what's required to make the right decisions. These obviously aren't the right decisions, and that's why we've acted as a football club and come down with the sanctions.
How much soul searching have you done personally this week?
It's been a really hard week for everyone involved at the football club. We're not shying away from that.
There's been questions, Dean, on whether you've lost control of the players, of the club and the culture and the playing community culture, if you like, that squad. What do you say to that?
I've been at the football club for 9 years. Every person within those 4 walls we value extremely highly, and they have a massive say on our culture as a group. We understand as leaders we need to lead that culture, but what we are going to do is we back ourselves in, we're going to move forward, and we're going to strive as strongly as we possibly can to repay the faith.
OK, I'll leave Dean Cox there. There'll be other questions asked, no doubt, by the media. We do have Patrick there, our reporter from the newsroom. If there's anything further to report on, we'll get to him later. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, g'day, buddy. Just on that 7:30 report last night with this bloke, just at the outset, you know, my take on it, start with, you know, that Sarah Ferguson's a piece of work as far as I'm concerned, mate, because she soft-pedaled on this interview in my eyes. But when this bloke expressed his disappointment at Israel for not having an investigation into the death of an Australian aid worker with about 6 others when a drone targeted the vehicle they were carrying in, and he expressed his disappointment they weren't going to have an investigation into it. How long did this drop kick take to announce a royal commission after the murder of 15 people on Bondi Beach?
Too long.
To talk about hypocrisy. He's the embodiment of it. I don't know. This bloke just got to go, mate. Yeah. And all he did was pat himself on the back of what he accomplished during the week for the Australian people.
Well, can I just say the worst part of this week for the Prime Minister was when he stood up in Parliament after answering a question from Angus Taylor about his Veterans Affairs Minister, Matt Keogh, and said, "I have full confidence in the Minister." He's joking.
You know, and finally, you know what? I think Australians need to get off their apathetic and indolent backsides, and I include myself when I say that. And we need to go tell these people in Canberra who pays their salary, and when people ask a question, they want an answer to be brushed aside as if we're not intelligent enough to comprehend it. That really gets up my nose, mate. It really, really does.
Yeah, I'm hearing it. There's some white-hot anger being expressed by so many listeners today on the same individual that's not funny. Richard, thank you very much for your commentary. Simon's in Brisbane. Go ahead, Simon.
G'day, Chris.
G'day.
To me, the Victorian election's very important to Australia. And it seems to me that Ben Carroll's started pretty well, come off a pretty big run, and he started pretty well. I'd just like to see the Liberal Party really stick with a couple of key issues, really talk about the CFMEU hard, and really get behind Mike Bush, the police commissioner, who's got 560 U's on his watch list. So really prosecute those topics.
It's interesting. I saw the latest polling. I think it was Tuesday, and it looks to be a November win to the Liberal Party, but 10 seats to One Nation, which will change the composition of the lower house in Victoria tremendously. It'll be a very different parliament.
Yeah, do you think they've gone, Labor, or do you think...
Oh, they're gone. They're gone. Look, Carroll is lifting them slightly, but from a very, very low base. And what he did yesterday, calling the Royal Commission, I think was the obvious thing to do. The people of Victoria have been calling for a Royal Commission into the big build for years now. And it's probably about 2.5 to 3 years too late, but at least it's been called. So that will go in his favour. But, you know, Labor's on the nose as a party, and changing the leaders is only going to make a small difference.
Okay, yeah, excuse my ignorance. I thought for some reason I must have heard differently that the polls were reasonably close, but I must have misread that.
No, well, if you take preference, I'm talking about the Conservative vote versus Labor's vote. If you take in the fact that One Nation will preference the Liberal Party and hold a 10-seat. Hold around about 10 to 11 seats, that will be that won't allow Labor to take government.
That's great, Chris. Thank you very much.
Good on you, Simon. Thank you very much. Now, this is interesting. 3 undercover Australian Federal Police officers who infiltrated major organised crime networks are claiming their threats were deliberately downplayed to reduce potential compensation costs by the AFP. Now, the allegations were raised in the Senate by Green Senator David Shoebridge, who says the officers' cover was believed to have been exposed, so it was blown, leaving them and their families fearing retaliation from criminal syndicates. Now, this is the worst nightmare for an undercover officer. The officers initially had an expected threat assessment, but that was later downgraded to possible, despite no apparent change in circumstances. It's awfully fishy, this stuff. They asked to be relocated overseas with their families, but instead Shoebridge says the AFP offered to move the officers alone to another Australian state, telling them the move was because of their anxiety rather than for their safety. So just go your own and just leave your family on their own. Like, seriously. If you're not looking after your undercover officers, whether it's a federal police agency or a state and territory agency, you are really in a situation where you'll never have trust coming from the rank and file. Anyway, an FOI release later allegedly showed the AFP had told Comcare the relocation was in fact prompted by safety concerns. The allegations also include claims that a former AFP Assistant Commissioner confirmed there had been a direction at the highest level to minimise the threat because of the potential cost of compo. So whoever's holding the purse strings at the highest level of the AFP, I don't know whether it's the AFP chief or not, they're more interested in saving bucks than protecting the lives of undercover officers and their families. A professional standards investigation followed this, but Shoebridge says it was later downgraded from a criminal investigation to an administrative inquiry. The AFP says no undercover officer has been physically harmed or killed after being identified by organised crime figures, and insists complaints have been properly considered and security measures implemented where appropriate. But by the sound of it, these 3 undercover officers are not copping that and are starting to come through and tell the truth. And the truth is a very unsavoury set of facts. And well done to David Shoebridge for highlighting that in the Senate this week. OK, I want to go to Moore Park. That's where that press conference was held featuring the captain and coach of the Sydney Swans. We played a little bit of the start of it for you. But Patrick Morrow, our reporter, has been at the press conference and heard all the questions and answers, and he's on the line right now. Patrick, they were very, very sombre and very, very respectful to the women in their club, weren't they?
Yeah, they definitely were, Chris. Both stated that football is secondary this weekend. The focus is really much about these allegations which are in front of the police investigation at the moment. Those 5 players are suspended for the AFL season. This now begs the question of, where will this see for the Sydney Swans in terms of their premiership aspirations? We know from what Dean said to me when I asked the question, are they confident winning the premiership? He said no, that their focus is just on this weekend's game and go from there. They both apologised to all women across the community and the AFL women's team. Dean got asked about if any other players were in the hotel room at the time of when the allegations took place. He denies that and basically deferred it to the police investigation handled by Victoria Police. It's another wait and see, Chris.
Okay, here is Callum Mills, the captain, talking about how damaging it is to the club, the Sydney Swans.
Our club has taken a massive hit with its culture, and we deem that those behaviours that were displayed on the weekend were far from what we believe is the standard that we need to be.
Have seen that?
No, I have not seen
the players admitted to taking drugs in the room?
It's a police investigation. We can't comment on what's gone on.
Dean, wouldn't it be better, you've named the 5 players, to end this speculation just of how many people were in the room and were there any other Swans officials in the room?
As part of the investigation, I'm unaware of that. And it is an investigation we have to let the police do their job and work through.
Okay, I'll just leave it there. Patrick, there is some speculation, especially from the woman at the centre of these alleged sexual assaults, that she claims there were 9 in the room, right?
Yes, that's right, Chris. And we've heard from a lawyer representing the 2 women who said the allegations are the worst he's seen in his career as a lawyer. So this just, it's going to be, as they would say, Chris, the can of worms are opening up as we talk.
Okay, I'll let you go. Thank you very much for that, Patrick. Patrick Morrow, who now needs to file for our news in about 7 minutes from now. But, yeah, they were very sombre in presenting to the media what they can say, what they can't, and their apologies to the club, to the women associated with the club and women in general. Just in terms of the players at the centre of this, there are other stories circulating today about how relationships have broken up as a result of these allegations, and also how emotional some of these players have been in the last couple of days. It'll be something they regret for the rest of their lives, no doubt. Some breaking news from Sydney Airport. I can't believe this. Tuesday morning this week, 2 Qantas passenger planes narrowly avoided a collision on the tarmac at Sydney Airport in yet another serious safety incident. This is still happening. The ATSB, which is the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, is today investigating after 2 Qantas jets were cleared to taxi in the same area. One Boeing 737 had just landed from the Gold Coast, while the Airbus A321 was preparing to fly to Melbourne. The Melbourne-bound crew spotted the approaching 737 and stopped their aircraft, which apparently avoided a collision. No one was injured and neither plane was damaged, but this is now the 4th major safety incident on the tarmac at Sydney Airport in the past month, and it's got to put fresh pressure on Air Services Australia and its Chief Executive, Rob Sharp, who, as we know, the Minister has no faith in. That was certainly revealed in media over the weekend. So Rob Sharp has some questions to answer once again. And, you've got to go back to earlier stories this week, which I brought you, about how much overtime is being, carried out by these air traffic controllers. They are shockingly understaffed. Like, if you have to get air traffic controllers from other countries, just do it. If there's not enough coming through the ranks and you can't fill a roster, you've got to source staff from elsewhere. And it may be you've got to start, advertising for overseas air traffic controllers. There are something like 900 hours of overtime in the last year performed by the existing staff of air traffic controllers. 900 hours. That is a hell of a lot, and a hell of a lot in what is clearly a pressure cooker workplace scenario, trying to work out, where to put planes, where to move departures and arrivals all at the same time, and they're getting it wrong. Now, they've been really lucky that we haven't had a collision between aircraft at Sydney Airport, but given the increasing incidents that are occurring and now being investigated, it seems to me that it's only a matter of time, which hopefully won't eventuate, but it sounds like it will. Just very quickly, I know the barracks issue is a big story. I still get emails about this and calls on the open line, but Chris Minns, the Premier of New South Wales, has gone to war with his own side over these historic military sites. Minns has thrown his support behind the campaign to stop the Albanese government selling Victoria Barracks in Paddington, saying It should remain in public hands and continue operating as a military facility. Minns told Budget Estimates yesterday, "I'm throwing my weight behind the Diggers. I think they're right on this one." He says a recent reception he hosted for Vietnam and Korean veterans helped shape his view, with veterans making it clear to him they wanted the barracks to remain under government and military control. But they are so determined, the federal government, to flog all of this off, make a quick buck, and to shield what is clearly a terrible, terrible economic debt. They can't do it, and they shouldn't do it. Now, Harry and Meghan, you've followed this, haven't you? No? I haven't either. Intentionally. But anyway, Harry and Meghan are heading back to the old country. That's the story this week. Apparently, Meghan's got a little bit of acting to do, and for the first time, they have spoken about their plans.
Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are moving back to the UK this month. Harry, the younger son of King Charles, and his wife intend to relocate from the US to a private, non-royal residence near London. Here they are now. Ms. Markle, why are you moving back to England?
We want to enrol the kids in good schools.
But the United States has good schools. So, Harry, why do you want to come back? To spend more time with my father. Oh, so you've been missing King Charles. Who? Oh, no. Oh, yes. King Charles. Yes, I've been missing him, my father, yes. Miss Markle, didn't Harry enjoy his time living in the United States?
Yeah, he loved it.
Well, why leave then?
Well, the truth is, his US visa got cancelled.
Oh, President Trump, you're here.
Here I am, and it was me who declined his visa.
Why's that?
Well, back in the United States, there's only room for one orange-coloured attention seeker at a time. That's all we can fit. That's all we can do.
Oh, King Charles, you're here too.
Come on, H, let's go. I've got a special surprise waiting for you. A classic piece of British antiquity, a relic from a foregone era, something old, but something beautiful.
Oh, so I'm finally getting one of the crown jewels.
No, you nincompoop. We're off to see Camilla. Crown jewels. In your dreams, H.
Thank you, Moxo. Yes, it's nothing like some kind of warm and fuzzy reunion by the sound of it. Apparently, Meghan wants to get back into acting, and the first offer she's had is for something in the UK. So that's why they're going. It's not because they're back in love with the king or anything like that, or kissed and made up with the brother. None of that. She just wants to get back into the acting game. And, of course, Harry is happy to do as she wants. A mother has sparked a massive debate online after asking other parents at the school her kid went to stop packing Oreos in their kids' lunchboxes. Now, when I first read this, I thought to myself, well, hang on, she's upset about the Oreos because obviously she thinks that that's unhealthy. You know, these chocolate little biscuits. My kids have these little biscuits. They're tiny ones. Just a treat, really. But she doesn't want the parents to pack the Oreos because her daughter was getting jealous. The school was initially asked to look at snack rules because of allergies, but the actual issue turned out to be a little bit different. Her child was apparently coming home upset because her friend had Oreos in her lunchbox. The school eventually reminded parents that what goes into their child's lunchbox is up to them, and that kids noticing what their friends have is just part of growing up. I remember back at OLR Convent School in Fairfield when I was a kid, I remember we had so many Europeans in the class. Like, we had a lot of Italians, a lot of Maltese people. We had Polish people. We had, anyway, lots of Europeans in my class at the time. And, of course, everything they had in their lunchbox was different to what I had. You know, I'd have a Vegemite sandwich. Maybe a muesli bar, a little bit of yogurt or something. We didn't have Devon sandwiches, but a lot of the Anglos had Devon sandwiches. But what in the other lunch boxes were like exotic sort of stuff. Pasta, which I'd never seen before. And all kinds of stuff like pig on the spit, parts of the spit that they'd had the night before. Very, very flash. Very, very different. And I remember we used to exchange these things in our lunchbox. Does that still happen today, or do schools sort of say, oh, you can't exchange? They'd probably put a ban on it in most schools, wouldn't they? They'd probably come up with some kind of health reason as to why you couldn't do that. But we used to swap all the time. Did you swap when you're in the playground at lunchtime because you're sick of your Vegemite sandwich and you fancied the tiny teddies instead? Or you got sick of the muesli bar and you wanted a fruit roll-up? And drinks too. We used to exchange drinks. Like someone would have a Coke or something and I go, oh, flash, Coke. So you'd get rid of the chocolate milk because you wanted the Coke and he wanted the chocolate milk, so that was fine. So we would swap stuff all the time. Do they do that nowadays? Do your kids or your grandkids swap stuff that you give them, and then when they tell you later on, they're reluctant to tell you because it's a bit of a damning outcome on what you're packing into their lunchbox. So they don't like to tell you. But I know Harry, one of my 10-year-olds, he swaps all the time, but he doesn't tell his mother because his mother's a dietitian and what she packs in the lunchbox is not debatable, you know? But Harry, on the other hand, covets others' lunchboxes. Maybe you can shed some light on all of this. What's the etiquette for lunch in the school ground now, according to what you've heard? And do you think you're being told the truth? You may have heard this in the last news bulletin, but it is big news for Catholic schools in New South Wales. The Catholic Schools New South Wales organisation has just sacked Dallas McInerney as its chief executive after his appearance in the witness box at ICAC. Now, he has led the organisation, Catholic Schools New South Wales, for nearly a decade. He was informed of the decision this morning and staff were told about it at around about 10:30, about 50 minutes ago. Now, apparently schools funding organisation had been advised by multiple people to allow McInerney to resign, but the board decided that won't be happening and they've terminated his contract. As you may know, ICAC alleges McInerney potentially broke donation laws by directing hundreds of thousands of dollars towards a conservative Christian Liberal Party sub-faction known as the Reformers. Investigators claim up to $265,000 in school funding was diverted to two companies via sham invoices. So he's gone. He's been sacked by Catholic Schools New South Wales after almost 10 years in the job. Steve, on the Central Coast, go ahead.
Morning, Chris. Happy Friday to you, mate.
Oh, yeah, it's happy. It's always happy on a Friday, even if it's raining.
Yes. Davey Warner, mate, brilliant cricketer.
Dave Warner, yep.
A master cricketer he was, but not so much upstairs, mate. Now, this DYU charge, he even tried to swap seats with his missus. Now, why didn't his missus drive in the first place? Now,
why didn't his missus drive in the first place? Well, she may have been over the limit as well.
Well, and let her cop the cop.
It's pretty rough when you say to your wife, "Oh, you got to take the can for this," and then she agrees. Like seriously, eh? Is she some kind of doormat? Look, I know a little bit about Candace, and I don't think she's a doormat. But boy, oh boy, why wouldn't Warner take the can himself?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yes, but trying to swap seats on top of it. I know he's always been a bit of a cheeky man in his lifetime. Like he was a brilliant sledger. I know that.
Very true. Very true, Steve. Yeah, it's a bit of a... But, police are used to that. Police see this all the time. You know that. When, someone comes around the corner and all of a sudden the flashing lights are in front of them. This happens quite often where the driver seeks to put the passenger in the driver's seat to escape any kind of, charge.
Or try and turn off early somewhere. Or...
Yeah. You just take the can. If it ever happens, you just take the can.
Yeah. Well, if you're willing to take the risk, mate, that's it. That's exactly right.
Very true. Good on you, Steve. Thank you. Catherine in Maitland. Hello, Catherine. Lunchboxes.
Yes. Chris, when I was a young girl in the 1960s, very young at school, probably just out of kindergarten, actually, and all my little girlfriends would sit down and have their lunch, and they'd have these neat little sandwiches with the crust cut off them.
Yes.
And my sandwiches would always have the crusts on. And I'd get very upset and not want to eat my lunch because the rumour was going round that it made your hair curly.
That's still the rumour.
Yes, and I had very curly hair, and all my girlfriends had lovely straight hair. And I just refused to eat my lunch.
And so you were convinced it was because of the crust you were eating?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It got that way that the teacher had to phone my mother and tell her that I wasn't eating my lunch. And I got home and Mum said, you know, what's wrong with your lunch? And I said, it's got the crusts on sandwiches. I said, I don't want the crusts on. Everyone else has them cut off. And she said, oh, all right then, well, I'll see what I can do. And the next morning she said, you don't have to worry about your lunch today. I've cut the crust off.
And life returned to normal for you.
Well, she said you can eat your sandwiches, and I was so excited that I couldn't wait for lunch. And I sat down with all my straight-haired little girlfriends, and I unwrapped my sandwiches, and here they were with the crust still on.
Oh, no! Yes. What, was she having a dig at you or something?
I do not know to this day. I just thought...
Well, that was worth crying about, wasn't it?
It was.
You are a funny woman, Catherine.
I just gave up from that day on. You know what? Crusts are the most, my most favourite part now of bread.
Yeah, when my parents forced silly food down my throat, they become my favourite as well. That's funny how that works. But yes, I don't know what that is. My kids won't eat the crust either. What is that about? Is it because they're boring?
I don't know. Maybe a little chewy and tough, perhaps.
Yeah. Not soft like...
I love all that now. I love it.
That's good, Catherine. You are a card. Ring again. Thank you. George in Newcastle. G'day, George.
How's it going?
Very well, thank you.
I want to tell you a story about a school when I was 13 years of age.
Please do.
I was in science class. I was 13.
Yeah.
Now, our science teacher was a real big man, about 6'4", 5.
Mm.
He was Yugoslavian and that. And he used to walk in, and this is how he'd address us kids. And he'd walk in and say, "Okay, you dirty little cockroaches."
I shouldn't laugh. Imagine a teacher trying to get away with that today.
Yeah, and he done it on a regular basis. And he said, if you don't listen, I'll tread on you and squash you like a dirty cockroach. So I thought, I'm going to get him. So he's up at he was raised above us at the front of the class, and we're all at our benches with the Bunsen burners and microscopes and the Petra dishes and all that.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking he walked out, and I said to the class, all the kids, I said, don't say anything, I'm going to get him. So anyway, he's come back in from his office, and we're looking in the microscopes down on a slide. And I got a big black texter, and I drew it, painted the eyepiece with the big outline black texter, and I looked in and pretend to look down at it, and I'm going, oh, wow, check this out. Well, he's run up and he's looked in, put the left eye on it, looked around. He put the right eye on it, looked around. He said, I can't see nothing. And I went, I must be imagining things. Well, when he stood up, went back up to class, he's looking at us. He's got these two big black rings around.
Like black eyes.
And the class went very quiet. And he knew something was going on. So he walked out into his office for about 5 minutes. He come back and they're all gone. And he said, okay, you dirty little cockroach. He took me, had backfired on me. He took me in and he had two canes, them reed canes, and one had 6 notches in them. and one had 8. And he said to me, Cockroach, he said, I don't know whether to use the 6-cylinder on you or the V8. And he said, as a matter of fact, I'm going for the V8. And he gave me 6 of the best.
Oh!
Yeah.
He didn't have a sense of humour.
Whack! Yeah, no, yeah, he didn't get the funny side. We all did. I was prepared for a fist beating because of what I'd done. Anyway, oh, mate, my fisters, they had blood blisters on the tips of every finger.
Stop.
To run them under the cold water to stop the pain. 13. He was a mongrel, he was. I just thought...
You'd have nightmares about this bloke. Still. Thank you, George.
No worries, mate. Bye.
Good story. It's not about lunchboxes, but it's about being unable to eat your food after that. Boy, oh boy. Now, as you know, Pauline Hanson puts out a Please Explain skit every Friday, and we like to look at it and cut it up and play it to you. And this one is about Anthony Albanese not really running the Labor Party or the government. The government and the Parliament and the party are all run by faceless men. Nobody voted them in and nobody can vote them out.
Oh, yeah, look at those melons.
Albo.
Oh, Penny, I told you, do not disturb me when I'm doing important Prime Minister stuff.
We can't have you sitting around looking at melons all day.
Oh, come on, Penny, I'm a melon man. You know that. You're just jealous you weren't gifted with a couple of juicy Japanese melons.
Look, Albo, as hypocritical as this is, I think me and all the other Labor women are just going to ignore this, okay?
Yeah, good.
But anywho, the real reason I'm here is because this little senator has racked up $148,000 in expenses in the last 3 months.
Charlotte Walker! Those are rookie numbers. This is the Labor Party. Show some disrespect for the taxpayer.
I'm not sorry.
Oh, she's got a real attitude problem.
Shut up, Benny.
Charlotte! If I was in charge of the Labor Party, you'd be in a lot of trouble right now, young lady.
Wait, so you're in charge?
Me? In charge of the Labor Party? Oh, sweetie, I wish.
I think it's time she meets them.
No, Penny, she's too young to go down there.
Where?
Where the Labor Party's really run. Behind closed doors.
What's that?
The back rooms.
Like the movie?
No, not like the movie. These are the back rooms of the Labor Party.
Now, Albo, take her to the faceless men.
Oh, come on, Penny, please. She's just a baby. She's not ready.
I'm ready.
Oh, man. You got to be careful down here, all right, Charlotte? This is the back rooms of the Labor Party. It's very dodgy down here.
What's that?
That's just government officials in the union cutting a secret deal in a back room. Nothing corrupt about that, technically. Ask Ieback. Charlotte? Charlotte!
What's that?
These are the internal factions of the Labor Party. Yeah, we might look like a unified front, but in reality, we're all over the place. Charlotte! Charlotte, it's not safe. People get stabbed in the back down here all the time. The faceless men don't muck around. They've knifed 6 Labor leaders, 3 Prime Ministers. Charlotte, seriously, it's very dangerous down here. You're too young and stupid.
You're not a bother me.
No, but they are. Senator Walker, we've been expecting you. Come on in. Now you're in real trouble, Missy. Come on in, Senator. But not you, you dog. Oh, yeah, but sorry, sir. Well, go on, take a seat. On your mat. Oh, come on, fellas. Not in front of Charlotte. Sit, Anthony. Yes, sir. Don't forget your collar. Now back. Woof, woof. Good boy. Now, Senator Walker, your expenditure is ridiculous, but it's not corrupt. Why not? What do you have to say for yourself? Charlotte, just say you're sorry.
I'm not sorry.
She's not sorry?
Ba, 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 ba.
She's not listening. She's refusing to accept responsibility. No accountability. She's perfect. What? She could be the next Labor Prime Minister. Or maybe even more powerful. Yes, she could be a faceless man. Hang on, her? A faceless man? Sit down! Sorry, it was the dog. Haha. Now listen up, Charlotte.
It's time you join the faceless men. We choose who leads the joint and when. We're the ones who run the place. We're the brains without a face.
And I'm the face without a brain.
Sit down, bad dog. underdog, we pull the strings. Despite not being voted in, we stack the branches by the ton. We pay their fees, they vote as one. So put your little ballot in. It doesn't matter, we will win. Even if 6, he's next in line. You'll see it on the news on 9. It's time you join the faceless men. We run things now, we ran things then. Been doing this since 63 with no accountability.
Oh, they've excelled. They've excelled. Please explain from the One Nation Party. This week's skit. I like that. Yes, we welcome the captain coach into the studio, and there's all sorts of things to talk about today. What a week.
Oh, what a week is right. It's been way, way, way over the top.
Yeah, way over the top, as you've been saying on Talk and Sport. I want to play you the latest in this Swans scandal, which is what the girl at the centre of this, the victim at the centre of this, and her lawyer is saying to 3AW in Melbourne. He is really beating this up big time. John Karantzis is his name. This is what he's told 3AW.
These women were subjected to the most disgusting actions and behaviour I have ever heard about in my 28 years as a lawyer. They're suffering severe stress and anxiety. They're actually fearing for their life at the moment.
Fearing for their life?
Boy, that's an amazing line for a lawyer to use.
Obviously, he's got his hand out, and hopefully there'll be compensation for his clients down the track. But even the allegations we've heard online, which are yet to be proven, they're not in that kind of category, according to what he's describing.
No, that's certainly taken it to a different level. Look, I said during the week on Talk and Sport, Chris, that I was involved in the background because of my brother Gary was the general manager when Coffs Harbour broke back in 2004.
Yep.
And the lesson learnt immediately was that you shut down an investigation by letting police run it. You do not do it yourself. You wait for the police to have a full investigation, and then you are naturally in a position to do everything you want to do with your own investigation. I was surprised that the Swans acted and did so before police have finalised theirs.
Yeah, and I heard you say some of that during the week as well. Let's turn to rugby league. Let's move off the Swans. Just finally on the Swans, I have heard that the Swans are going to release a statement shortly based on what that lawyer had to say to straighten the record. So that's what I've been told. We'll see whether that materialises before midday. But to rugby league, and one of the finest players ever to wear the red V of the Dragons, Billy Smith, has passed away, and 234 first-grade appearances. His career spanned from 1961 to 1977. A one-club player, which is a rarity. But what a player.
Unbelievable player, and became a friend. I played against Billy for a number of seasons, and I was great friends with Graham Langlands, who was introduced to me by Kerry O'Keefe, who was a great mate of Chank's. And they were interested in cricket, and I was only just coming into the New South Wales Sheffield Shield team at about 18 years of age, and spent socially a bit of time with both Chang and Billy. I was out injured for the Bulldogs one day, walked on the field with crutches. Frank Hyde wanted me to come to halfway to be interviewed at half-time of the game, and Chang and Billy were walking off the field. They both came over and said, "Oh, look, are you okay?" And I went, yeah. And they sort of started laughing, and then Chang kicked my crutches and threw them away. and this is at Cogra Oval in front of the main grandstand. And here I am hobbling and trying to pick up, and they're both killing themselves laughing.
They were practical jokers, the pair of them, but Billy in particular. I'll get to Craig Young in just a second, but you know he was a member of 4 consecutive premiership-winning teams, Billy Smith, from 1963 to 1966. He played in the centres originally for the 3 grand finals, and then became one of the most wily halfbacks ever.
Uncompromisingly tough and always giving 110%. Billy Smith was one of the game's great halfbacks.
Quick passing from Draper to Gasnier to Smith, who goes over in the corner.
He played with St George for most of the 60s and 70s, contributing to 4 grand final victories.
Walsh sends to Smith, on to Clay, who reverse passes. Ducking under Beatson's tackle, Smith sends Pollard away on the burst, and he crosses for a spectacular try.
One of the memorable footballers of his era, he racked up an incredible 296 games with the Saints.
The Quicksilver Smith finds an opening, but Sattler, who's at the peak of his form, closes on him.
But a great tackle indeed by Smith. One of the greatest covered defenders in the business. He got him by his bootlaces there.
Smith also had a stellar international career, playing 18 tests and 8 World Cups. Twice in a row, he won the Harry Sunderland Medal and captained Australia to victory in the 1970 World Cup.
Watson's pass to Sullivan is intercepted by Smith, and he flashes away. King is in support, and on generalling Chisnell and Price scores his second try in the corner.
And Billy was inducted into the New South Wales Rugby League Hall of Fame in 2021.
Yeah, and that disappoints me a little bit in one respect. I've said it on the show quite a bit. We have this Immortals tag that is growing and growing and growing. Look, there are going to be people who end up in an Immortals that I would say are comparable to Billy Smith. He's not in that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, if you look at baseball in America, they have a Hall of Fame, and the legends of Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth and all that stuff.
Yep.
No one's put above anybody in the Hall of Fame. They're all in it together.
Yeah, that's a good point, a very good point. I've got Dragons legend Craig Young on the line right now. Craig, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Chris.
Good to have you. Wow, you played with him in 1977. Before we talk about his off-field antics, what a skillful halfback and a crafty halfback he was.
Yeah, I've my first year in '77 and Billy's last, unfortunately. It was before his time. The things he taught me were, counting numbers and short sides and looking at fatigued players to run at, and that he was, he helped me immensely, and it's one of my things I reflect on is we played the same amount of first grade games. 234, which I tell people about.
Yeah.
Not about me, but about Billy. And, yes, his drive and his toughness was second to none. He was just a fantastic player, and it was great for team spirit. Like every Tuesday you get the team up at the Royal Hotel at Carlton for some beers and that, and, he was fantastic.
Albert, it's Graham Hughes.
Graham, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Look, I ended up playing against Billy in 74, 75. And I'm just saying to Chris, I mean, people have got to understand that the era that he came through, he was as good as anybody that gets rated in their era today. And that's why at times, this immortal tag and Hall of Fame tag differentiates. But he was as good as they get.
Oh, in my eye, he's an immortal. I say this, that the Gasniers and Johnny King and the outside backs wouldn't have, and Chook in the middle of the field, wouldn't have achieved their greatness without Billy. He was a halfback in those days. I remember playing a game at Jubilee. He'd just go to the line. He'd tell me to wait the short side. He'd go to the line and get bashed, and I'd be running into fresh air. I look like a genius. And I look around, and Billy's they've knocked him to the ground, but he kept doing it. He kept persevering, knowing that he was, going to cop a knock. He'd done that for the team.
Yeah, we also forget about those days too, Albert, in that as a defender, I mean, today we now see 3 and 4 guys in a tackle. He would just go low and knock somebody over as quick as you wanted.
Oh, yeah, he's, defensively. I'll just share this story with you. He'd done his cartilage in 77, and in those days, cartilage operations were terminal for players, but there's no keyhole ops and things like that. But I'll never forget, we're training, this is 3 days after the op. He would have had 20 or 30 stitches in his knee. We were training in the middle of the field, doing some ball work for about an hour, and Billy put a crepe bandage around his crook knee, and he kept him just doing laps for an hour. And the blood was oozing out of the wound. You could see the blood oozing, and him talking to the injury, wanted to get better. I won't share what language he used. And then that just summed him up. He just wanted to get back on the field, even though he was 34 at that age, probably 35.
He loved a beer too, Craig, and he was a bit of a practical joker too, wasn't he?
Oh, my word. I won't go down that track, but he was good. Let's say he got the team together, and he was good for team spirit, and there was always something going on with Billy.
I bet.
Always.
Hey, Craig Young, thank you very much for giving us your time and giving a terrific, adequate tribute to what some describe as one of the immortals of our game, irrespective of the fact that he's not classified as one, but certainly deserves so. Thank you, Craig.
Take care, mate.
Okay, my pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Craig Young. There you go, classic. But you know how much of a practical joker he was. He couldn't stop it.
Look, I used to have a drink with him at the Carring Bar Inn, which was a favourite watering hole of his back in the day. And you'd sort of go, yeah, okay, mate, we'll have a couple of beers. About 8 hours later, you were still saying, yeah, Billy, I think we'd better go. So it was best to get out of there while I could.
Yeah. We've got that Sydney Swans statement. The Sydney Swans can confirm that all investigations carried out by the club have consistently indicated that the only representatives of the club in the room central to the police investigation were the 5 players who've been stood down. We have every reason to consider that reports to the contrary are simply false. This is the woman at the centre of this claiming there were 9 in the room. We are respecting the process with the relevant authorities and will refrain from commenting on police matters. So they're just trying to get the record straight that they were the only players in that room.
Good. That's it. Police are there to handle it.
Exactly. In cricket, we've got the second test against Bangladesh starting tomorrow. If they lose this one as well, there will be mass changes in that side.
Oh, well, there has to be. I mean, we've lost one. I mean, Jake Weatherall is gone. I mean, it's rather funny, isn't it? Matt Renshaw comes back at 30 years of age. Now, he originally got there in opening at 21 years of age, and he was dropped because of his average after 10 tests was 36.6. I mean, they'd love him and keep him at 36.6 at the moment, opening the batting. So that's where we're at, and of course that gets underway tomorrow. We have to shape up.
Yeah, in Mackay. All right, NRL, Panthers back on track last night against the Storm. They backed off a little in that second half, but Cleary again, masterclass.
Yeah, it was. He had a great first 40, and his dad would be proud. Let me tell you that Nathan would also be proud of Ivan. Coached his 500th game last night. 22-0 they led. The Storm came back and they were great with their second half performance, but they had about a 70% share of possession down at one end.
Yeah.
That's how the game turned.
Then yesterday we also had the news that Kevin Walters standing down after the World Cup of Rugby League and heading off to St Helens.
Yeah, he's got the coaching bug at Kev. Of course, he missed out eventually at the Broncos. And he's been happy looking after the Aussies. He will continue through to the end of the World Cup at the end of this year. Then he goes straight across St Helens, one of the big clubs who have huge expectations. It's one of the most famous over there in England.
They're saying goodbye to Josh Papali'i this afternoon down in Canberra against the Broncos.
I'm expecting the Broncos to come up with a pretty big performance. They are under pressure. There's news in and around investigations about the team, a special panel being set up to even look into the coaching side of things. Josh Papali'i's been an outstanding player. 341 games. No one will ever forget his mullet, as big as he is. But look, great player. I wish him well. I'm thinking the Broncos are going to win against the odds here.
Right, okay. Dolphins may rack up a decent score against the Eels at Suncorp, I think.
I'm expecting that, as long as they don't go AWOL. But, they're fighting for fourth spot. The way they play the game, in counter-attack especially, which means they're going to let points in during the finals, they need that second grab at things by finishing in the top 4.
Okay. Knights Sea Eagles tomorrow, first game.
Knights have been outstanding.
Yeah.
All year we've been talking about the Knights, how good. Everybody was sort of thinking no. They have an opportunity by continuing winning to put pressure even on teams on the bottom half of the top 4.
Yeah. Rabbits Warriors. we're not thinking too great about this match, the Rabbits, because we're thinking of the next game where we have to win against the Titans. But do they stand any chance?
I think you should be thinking good things about this game. They've got 2 sets of halves gone.
Yeah, true.
The Warriors.
And the fullback.
Yeah.
And the fullback.
2 sets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Dragons versus the Doggies. You go for your Doggies, obviously.
It's an outside chance, massive outside chance, still at the 8. Dogs.
Okay. And Titans Sharks.
Sharks have been extremely poor the past couple.
Without their 5'8" too.
Yeah, I think he's their number 1 player. I think they've got the ratings wrong on that, Braden Trindle. But they should have come back and win this one.
Okay, and the Roosters Tigers. That could be a cricket score too.
Yeah, Tigers no Adam Dewey as well, so Roosters to get up.
Have you taken your Arbor Vitae this morning?
Look, I have, and I need to tell you about Arbor Vitae. Folks, this is your go-to supplement when it comes to managing pain associated with osteoarthritis. A terrific berry flavour. Arbor Vitae lives up to its name, which takes it from the Latin word arbor, meaning tree, and vitae, meaning life. And that's what it is for thousands of happy, repeat customers. Exactly what it is, a tree of life. Arbor Vitae consumers swear by it, as I do, and you can see for yourself what they're saying when you check the Arbor Vitae Facebook page. It's where people who use Arbor Vitae are voluntarily leaving their honest comments about the product, and plenty of them are raving about it. Now, you can get a better how can you get a better recommendation than that?
Yeah.
It's no wonder that in the last 3 years, Arbor Vitae has grown from a distribution network comprising 100 retail outlets to being available these days, due to popular demand, in over 2,000 chemist and health food stores nationwide. And now you can get Arbor Vitae at all Mr. Vitamins, Bloom's The Chemist, Terry White Chemart, and Chemist Warehouse outlets. Remember, always read the label, follow the directions for use to order online, or to find the location of your nearest Arbor.
Okay, have a good show this afternoon and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, mate. Have a great weekend.